Well, after the disastrous, and I mean disastrous, performance in the 2024 election, in which Democrats lost all 7 battleground states, they lost the popular vote to President Trump by 1.5 points. We can already see that the Democrats are laying the groundwork for a return to power in 2028. We have seen people like Gretchen Whitmer, people like Pete Buttigieg decline to run in competitive races to ultimately keep their eye on the 2028 Democrat presidential primary. Now, we know the number of candidates that are laying the groundwork for 2028 continues to grow by the day. So we're going to be looking at the list of candidates to keep an eye on that could jump in this race for the nomination in 2028, and we'll be looking at the moves they are making, starting with our favorite. We all know she's our favorite, former Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, we know Kamala Harris, she was the big loser in 2024, the big loser. Whether it was the fact that she had to beg for Biden's endorsement, whether it was the fact that Barack Obama didn't want to endorse her, that he wanted an open primary at the convention, whether it was the fact that Biden, even though he ran in 2020 on the idea that he was going to be this transitory figure, he was going to be this bridge to the next, he was going to bridge the gap to the next generation, and then decided that, you know what, actually, I'm going to hold on to power. And we all know Kamala, she's still trying to process this loss. She cannot believe it that she lost to Donald Trump. She lost to a billionaire and a venture capitalist. And since she lost this election, there have been rumors that she is either laying the groundwork for a 2026 run for the governor of California or in 2028 for the presidential election. Now, we know as far as the governor's race goes, Gavin Newsom is the current governor from California, won his election back in 2022 by about 18 points. And I think there was a recall. I don't know if it was in 20. There was a recall in which he faced off against Larry Elder. He beat him out pretty easily. But ultimately, because he is term limited and because he is considered running for president in 2028, we know Gavin Newsom is desperate to be president. But because he is term limited, that opens up a huge opportunity for Kamala Harris in the state of California. And she would not be the first vice president or presidential nominee that would then go back to state politics. Kamala Harris was elected as AG and as a senator from the state of California. And according to the New York Times, she is laying the groundwork for another run. And she really is leaning for another run for the White House in 2028. It seems that that's what she's doing. But Harris will face a huge issue. She is only receiving federal funding for an office for 6 months after she became the former vice president. So July. And she will need a new revenue source by July to keep her team employed. It's kind of interesting to think about this, but there's been some rumors that have swirled around and interviews done with top Harris officials that have said that she could establish a policy institute. A policy institute. I honestly don't know what to say. Here we go. One possibility, establishing, and this is from the New York Times, an institute for policy and ideas. Yes, Kamala Harris is the figure we all look for our policies and ideas. No, we look for, she's what we look like on a Tuesday when we decide to start drinking at 11 a.m. It's like, let's be real about this. Brian Nelson, an advisor to Ms. Harris, since she was California's Attorney General, has broached the idea with several universities, including Howard and Stanford University, but some allies have noted that raising money for such a center could depend on the donors create liabilities for future races, which I completely agree. I agree with it, that it will create, for the same reason why it's a binary decision between 2026 and 2028. She even says it up here. Her political choice is binary. She has told the people she can run for governor or president, but not both, which, I think that's a smart thing. And you rarely are going to hear the word Kamala Harris and smart in the same sentence, but that is actually a smart move to do. There were, if she were to run for the governorship in 26, she would almost have to immediately after she was elected, turn around and then run for president. And here's the thing, in California, how it works is all the Democrats and Republicans are in one primary. And what happens is the top two in the primary advance. So they're to the general election. So there is a good possibility that the Democrats could have 2 Democrats that advance to the general election. How embarrassing would that be if Kamala Harris got beat by another Democrat in the general election? That would be very, very embarrassing. And then she'd be bogged down. She'd have responsibilities as the governor of California that would bog her down in a 2028 presidential race. For the same reason you look at Whitmer and Buttigieg. They're not running for anything because they know it will bog them down. They need to be dead focused on 2028 if they want to win and if they want to run and if they want to win. But as of right now, I expect to hear or have a good idea of what she's going to be doing for the next 4 years by mid to late summer 2025. I think that's kind of the deadline she set for herself at this point. But now jumping over to the wonderful, our favorite, AOC. Just wonderful. And for all her faults, she has actually done something halfway smart. It's like halfway smart. She has seized on an opportunity to elevate herself as a leader in the Democrat Party and as a leader in the resistance to the second Trump administration. Because look back a couple weeks when Chuck Schumer decided to allow Republicans to pass a continuing resolution that would fund the government until September 30th, even though there was strong opposition from Democrat lawmakers in the Senate and in the House. Granted, there was one Democrat who voted for the continuing resolution. I believe it was Jared Golden from Maine, which we know he won a race that was by like half a percentage point. So it makes sense why he's trying to be this more moderate. Yeah, look, he won by half a percentage point. This Maine 2nd Congressional District voted for Trump by like 9 points at the same time when they elected Golden. So it makes sense why he decided that he was going to run in that race. But ultimately, we know that Democrats in this race here, that in AOC overall, has been really trying to seize on this opportunity. When Chuck Schumer, like we said, decided to pass that continuing resolution, even though there was huge opposition from Democrats, from lawmakers to the base, to core Democrat voters, to progressive, AOC jumped on this opportunity to bash Senate Democrats who allowed this to happen, to bash Senate leadership for allowing this to happen. And recent polling shows that Democrats, by and large, want to fight the Trump administration at every turn. Every turn, even if the policy that they are promoting is very popular. Look at this. This is a poll out from Harvard Harris, which shows, the question was asked, do you think Democrats should oppose everything that Trump is doing, or should they take more of a wait-and-see attitude towards his actions? From the Democrats, 64% of Democrats they want them to oppose everything Trump is doing. Everything Trump is doing. So even when you have a popular policy like securing our border, like deploying troops to our southern border, like extending the tax cuts, making sure Americans don't get a 22% tax hike overnight. Democrats want to oppose Donald Trump at every opportunity. And, and AOC has shown the base that she is willing to do that. She has also paired up with Senator Bernie Sanders to go out on these fight the oligarchy rallies. And really, it's been actually very successful for her. Because like we said, the recent polling shows they want them to fight. And pairing up with Bernie Sanders on this fight the oligarchy rally really is another just great thing that AOC has done to position herself. Now, granted, I would never vote for AOC. I would never vote for any of these Democrats here. But you have to look at it by what they're actually doing inside of their party. What are they doing? You have to you have to analyze it and not be biased about it. You have to look, okay, what is someone actually doing that is smart? What is something that's not smart? But it's kind of funny that Democrats, Bernie Sanders, and AOC is pairing up together to lead these fight the oligarchy rallies. But hold up. But you guys represent the party that 85% of billionaires support. Oh, so your party has a support of 80% of the billionaires, but somehow the Republicans are the oligarchs. Huh. It's kind of funny how stuff works out that way. But either way, she is finding a way to win support from rank-and-file Democrats, while at the same time courting large followings of Senator Bernie Sanders. It's like, we know Bernie has a huge following. And because Sanders, I think he's like 83, 84, 85, will not be able to lead this party in his faction of the Democrat Party forever, this faction will need a new party leader to replace Bernie Sanders in the near future. And AOC seems to be positioning herself best to run in 2020 by, look, you're appeasing to the base. 64% of Democrats want to oppose Donald Trump at every turn. You're appeasing rank-and-file Democrats, while at the same time, you have the support from the Democratic Socialist of America. That faction of the party that's a lot more populist that Bernie Sanders represents. So if she can court both of those, it's all about, what kind of support can she cobble together to build a base that can win electorally. That's what it's all about, winning electorally. And the only way you do that is by building a coalition. And AOC seems very well positioned right now and continues to do the right things to position herself, to have the far left wing of the party, the anti-Israel portion of the party, the populist portion of the party. Also, with rank and file Democrats, she seems to be building this coalition together. And at a minimum, you could see her position herself to run against Chuck Schumer in the primary in 2028, I think. And there's some good data to back this up. Look at this. That for a 2028 New York Senate Democrat primary, from data progress from March 26th to 31st, but with about 767 likely voters, they found that AOC would have got 55% of the support versus Chuck Schumer at 36. We're talking about the Senate minority leader right now. We know AOC already did it one time. She already did it in 2018 when she ousted, I believe, the number 3 Democrat in the House, or number 4 Democrat in the House. So at a minimum, she's positioned herself for a 2028 run against Chuck Schumer. And then the other big one that you have to look at, you have to look and see how much money AOC was able to raise. Let's look this up real quick. But AOC recently, Q1 fundraising numbers just came out, and it turns out that AOC raised a whopping $9.6 million in the first quarter of 2025. She has roughly $8.2 million on hand. You want to talk about someone gearing up for a presidential bid? You want to talk about someone laying the groundwork? This looks like groundwork to me. If you thought Kamala Harris was laying groundwork, look at what AOC is doing. She is laying the groundwork here to take control of the Democrat Party. And, whether this is, but this is the true groundwork. This is the true groundwork that is required to get the nomination in 2028. And whether it's intentional or not, it doesn't matter. This is what she is doing. And now that will bring us to our next lovely, wonderful candidate in Gavin Newsom. Just my favorite. He's just my favorite Democrat of all time. I don't know if you knew this. But Gavin Newsom is desperate. This guy is desperate to be president. He has been building a national profile for years, since he became the governor of California. Before that, he was the lieutenant governor of California. And you could really say he positioned himself very well during Trump's first administration as a leader in the Democrat Party and a leader to the resistance to Donald Trump in his first term. Gavin Newsom and Trump were sparring consistently throughout his first term. That included with the fact now, look at what he's doing. He started a podcast. He's decided to meet voters where they're at. He's one of the few Democrats who's actually looked at the 2024 election. They look at this map right here. Oops. They look at this map and they say, we effed up. We effed up. And now, granted, this was before the 24 election, but you saw he decided he wanted to debate Governor Ron DeSantis, really bring a national audience to the case he's trying to make. And like we said, now he has his own podcast to try and raise his profile even more than other Democrats and is gearing up for a 2028 presidential bid. We know he is desperate to be president. You can see how desperate he is. And he wants that power. He wants that respect. And Newsom is going to try and sell himself as this moderate. He's a pseudo-moderate. He's really, just listen to this. Listen to him try and sell himself as a moderate right here, and we'll discuss.
And be like, you know what? The young man who's about to win the state championship in the long jump in female sports, right. that shouldn't happen. You as the governor should step out say no.
No, and I appreciate
but would you do something like that? Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. So that's easy to call out, the unfairness of that. There's also a humility and a grace, that these poor people are more likely to commit suicide, have anxiety and depression. And the way that people talk down to vulnerable communities is an issue that I have a hard time with as well. So both things I can hold in my hand.
Okay, fine. You want to say you want to be respectful. I'm fine with that. I'm all about respect. That's great. Good for you. But he's saying, I think it's an issue of fairness. You do know you were the governor that signed some of the most radical transgender ideology laws that are on the books. Laws that require school districts to allow mentally ill men to go into female sports, female bathrooms, female locker rooms. You made your state the trans sanctuary state. You are the sanctuary state for transgender individuals. and specifically minors. They've tried to attack parental rights when it comes to parents who don't want to allow their kids to get these horrible procedures. They're horrible procedures that happen. So you can already see he's trying to move closer and closer to the center. You even saw it. He even came out and tried to say that no one in my office has ever used the word Latinx. And then there's like a whole compilation of him and people in his office using the term Latinx. But like we said, he is going to try and sell himself as a moderate to the public. He is not a moderate. Do not buy into this. He's a pseudo-moderate. He is a paper tiger. This guy has no values. He has no morals. This guy does whatever he has to do to win. And, good for him. But he's trying to move more and more to the middle. But I do think it will be a hard sell. He tried to run as the most progressive governor in America for 8 years. He tried to brand himself as the most progressive governor in America. But now you're, the most moderate person in America. And I do think, like I said, it's going to be hard for him to sell this to the American people. Good luck. How are you going to convince the people in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin to vote for you? You're a West Coast elitist. You're born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Good luck explaining that to the people who work in manufacturing facilities in Michigan. Good luck explaining that to the oil workers who work in Pennsylvania. Good luck. I really wish you a lot of luck doing that. But here's the thing. You have to remember, if Gavin Newsom has put in this amount of work in this far away from the 2028 race, he is 100% gearing up for a 2028 bid. No doubt about it. I have zero doubt in my mind. 100% Gavin Newsom will be in the Democrat primary. I don't think he'll get the nomination, but he will be in it. So he is 100% gearing up for this. And we need to do what we can to battle this. He is going to try and spend the next 4 years shifting how voters feel about him. There's no doubt about it. And Republicans need to fight back against this. They need to stand up to him. No, you're not a moderate. Look what you did. You're one of the most progressive Democrats in America. And your legislative history shows it. And now, supposedly, Gavin Newsom wants like a $3 billion loan from the federal government so they can cover the cost to pay for illegal immigrants on their Medicaid program in California. Well, at the same time, now they're trying to sue the Trump administration. Screw you. There is no illegal immigrant should be on Medicaid. They shouldn't be. They don't know. You're not an American citizen. You do not get social benefits. It is no, absolutely not. But now, moving on, I guess you could say our next favorite. Oh, and I actually don't even have a tab for him open up here. We'll have to open up our own separate tab right now for the wonderful governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz. It's like we know Tim Walz was a relatively unknown governor before his race in 2024, and the national profile has been significantly raised since he was chosen in 2024 to be the vice president for Kamala Harris. And, we've talked about this before. Why was Tim Walz the pick? Obama, when he was running, he was like, well, I need a vice president, someone who's not going to outshine me, someone who's dumber than me, someone who, is like an insurance policy. Okay, well, he picked Joe Biden. Well, then you look at what happened when Biden ran in 2020. He was like, well, same thing. I need a vice president, can't outshine me. They're an insurance policy. So he picked Kamala Harris. Okay, we're at like the bottom of the barrel now. So now what's Kamala Harris doing? She's, I need to pick someone who's dumber than me, someone who isn't as smart as me, someone who's not going to outshine me. So you pick the bumbling, the guy who supposedly made friends with school shooters, governor of Minnesota. And Tim Walz he's an interesting guy. There's no doubt about that. And although many people they did not see Tim Walz as the best candidate. Most voters thought Josh Shapiro would be the pick. They really did. And most polling thought that he was the pick. They thought he would be the best pick. He would help her the most in an electoral map. Remember, they lost all 7 swing states. Do you think they could have won something like Pennsylvania with Josh Shapiro? Do you think they could have won something like Michigan? Who knows? Maybe Wisconsin? Maybe. And maybe, I think there's a couple theories behind why Josh Shapiro may have been like, yeah, no. I think one, he was just like, yeah, no, this is a losing campaign. I don't want to go down with this sinking ship. I'm on dry land right now. I'm not going to jump onto a ship that's taken on water right now. But also, I think there's a big portion, and a lot of Democrats even agree with this. There's a large portion of the Democrat Party that they would not vote for someone who is Jewish. They would not vote for someone who's Jewish on the ballot. That is a big issue the Democrats have, a huge issue. You have the huge pro-Hamas faction of the Democrat Party that you have to still deal with, because at the end of the day, you're not winning elections unless you get their votes. So you have to court them. You have to do, you don't have to do exactly what they want. You do have to do enough to get them to vote for you. But there is one thing that I guess you can say Tim Walz does have on his side. One thing you can say, and is that he's gotten a lot done in Minnesota. And although I vehemently disagree with his policy prescriptions that he has for the problems in the world, you cannot deny that Tim Walz, with small majorities, has gotten a lot done. They had a $18 billion surplus in Minnesota, and he was able somehow to spend all of it on his social programs when they had like a 1-seat majority in the Senate in Minnesota. Yeah. So at the end of the day, Tim Walz was able to get things done. He actually put pen to paper. Now, granted, I think he did a terrible job with a lot of it. Even like, you look at the legalization of marijuana in the state of Minnesota. The rollout has been horrible. We're 2 years down the road and still nothing. Still nothing. Because he appointed some lady to lead it up, and then it turned out she was illegally selling pot at her CBD shop, and then it took 18 months to find a new person. It's just been horrible. But you can't say that he hasn't passed policy. He hasn't done everything in his power to implement the liberal progressive agenda. And I think that's something he has going for him. And you look what he's doing now. He's going around the country. He is on tours going around the country right now, talking to really disenfranchised voters. He is positioning himself right now for a huge step into a national profile again in 2028. And now that Democrats are starting to talk about 2028, Walz's name wouldn't have been on the list, but now it may be towards the top of the list. And he did indicate that he's interested in running for president in 2028 and criticize his campaign with Kamala Harris in 2024, saying that, quote, "We shouldn't have been playing this thing so safe." And I agree. I think that was a huge thing that the Democrats did wrong. They tried to be this, in a bubble candidate. They tried to be this perfect candidate in a bubble. And what did you get? You got the school shooter comment. You got things where Kamala Harris had these major word salads. Just like, who knows what the hell this lady's even talking about? This lady is so far removed from reality, nobody even knows what she's talking about here. But he's doing the groundwork right now. He is going countrywide, holding town halls. And now he's kind of being a dummy, cheering for the fact that Tesla stock went down, even though the Minnesota portfolio owns 2 million shares of Tesla. It's like, yeah, talk about being a complete dumbass. But you can even see right here, there's a lot of people in Minnesota. He may be going countrywide, but the people in Minnesota are turning against him. Now, does that mean he's not going to win in 2026 if he runs for governor again? I don't know. But just take a listen.
Sir, you're welcome to come. Let me finish. Let me finish.
Coward indeed. And now that is going to move us on. And before we get to the last person, actually, we're going to do the last person, then we'll go on to some notable mentions. And the last person we're going to be looking at here is the senator from New Jersey, Cory Booker. This guy is, what do they call those, googly eyes? And now he's currently, looks like he's going to lead a trip to El Salvador to try and release an MS-13 gang member. So that's just great. But Cory Booker was a failed vice president or candidate in 2026. Or 2020, excuse me, what am I saying? Ran for president in 2020 and got beat pretty badly. And recently, Cory Booker decided that, and I'm just trying to find some video of this real quick. Here we go. So Cory Booker decided that he was going to give the longest speech in the Senate on record, in which he spoke on the Senate floor for 25 hours straight. He beat a record that was held by Strom Thurmond, where he spoke for about 24 hours and 18 minutes in opposition to the Civil Rights Act of 1957. But the thing about Booker is that he spoke for no reason. He just got up and decided that he was going to talk for 25 hours and rant about how Donald Trump is destroying democracy and how he's a threat to the Constitution. even though he wasn't filibustering anything. And this is the modern, let's just take a listen real quick. Take a listen to Cory Booker just kind of losing his mind for a minute.
And now it's our generation. We have to redeem the dream. We have to excite people again. He, in the highest office of our land, wants to divide us against ourselves, wants to make us afraid, wants to make us fear so much that we're willing to violate people's fundamental rights. We're willing to go after the speech on college campuses. We're willing to go after law firms, go after the freedom of the press. Don't let him do that. Don't become like him. Be an American that says, I look to the future and I'm excited. Yes, things are tough right now. They're hard, they're scary, they're hurting, but we can overcome this. Our American history, if it's nothing else, American history, if it's nothing else, it is a perpetual testimony to the achievement.
So you can clearly see this guy's getting a little delusional at this point in the speech right now. Not to say he wasn't delusional in the first 30 seconds either, but this is the Democrat Party in a bubble right here. It really is. He got up, talked for 25 hours, ranted about Donald Trump, even though he was filibustering nothing. The Democrat Party, and like I said, this is the Democrat Party in one picture. All performance, no substance. And to be honest, this is par for the course with the modern left. They don't push for debate. They push for this moral posturing where if you're against them, you're not just wrong. You don't just disagree with them. You're evil, you're racist, you're sexist, you're anti-democracy. You're a threat to the Constitution. And this is the same type of energy that the Democrats show when it comes to climate protest, where they, glue people to the road and just do the dumbest things. How is this productive at all? And now you see the same liberals who have been protesting for years for to do more for climate change. We need more electric vehicles. Now they're the same people who are going out and setting fire and vandalizing Tesla dealerships and setting Tesla vehicles on fire, emitting CO2 into the atmosphere. Oh gosh, it's kind of funny how that works. And at the same time, you have these billionaires who, climate change, oh, we need to do more. But then here's them flying a private jet to climate summits. It's the do as I say, not as I do politics. And I don't buy into this. I just think it is the Democrat Party in a bubble right here. That's what it is. There was no specific legislation being debated on the floor. He wasn't halting a vote. There was no imminent bill on the table. It was political theater. It was not even strategic. It wasn't even a strategic legislative move. Democrats love grandstanding like this. Or on TikTok, or stand in a sit-in. But they don't actually pass anything. They don't actually do anything meaningful. It's about optics, not outcomes. When Democrats controlled the House, Senate, and the White House in 2021, they didn't codify Roe v. Wade into law. They didn't fix immigration. They barely passed the Build Back Better, which was just a climate scam at the end of the day, that regulated the hell out of the economy. They could have pushed for policy, but instead they gave speeches, held press conferences, and blamed the GOP. That's the Democrat Party. Hey, whether you like Donald Trump or not, you cannot deny that Donald Trump is doing everything in his power to enact the will of the people, the will of the people that voted for him. And granted, is there some disagreement? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, this is what he was elected to do, and he is doing that. Now, I thought we'd mention some notable candidates on the list here. People like Gretchen Whitmer. Where is she on here? Who, she was at the White House recently, and, Donald Trump was signing some executive orders, and she decided to cover her face with a binder so no paparazzi would see her. None of the press would see her, even though we all knew it was her. You look at someone like Pete Buttigieg, who recently said he's not going to be running in 2026 for the Senate race in Michigan or the governor's race in Michigan, really showing he is eyeing a 2028 bid. You look at people like Roy Cooper. He could run in for the Senate in 26. He could. He is the best chance the Democrats have to beat Tom Tillis, no doubt about it. But it also sounds like he may be holding out for a 2028 bid. Let's see, anybody else on here who looks, I think Josh Shapiro, I don't know. I think he would be a good pick. I think for a Democrat, I think he'd be moderate, but there's no way the Democrats would vote for a Jewish person. It's like, I really hate to say it. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So that is the ever-expanding Democrat 2028 nominate list for the Democrat primary that every day is going to continue to expand. every single day. We are going to see more people laying more groundwork, more people jumping in, more people showing their interest in this race. So let me know your thoughts down below. Is there any Democrats that you'd like me to cover in the future? But like I said, wrap things up for today. Drop down below, hit that subscribe button, and we will catch you next time, folks.